Hello and welcome to the 100 Podcast. I'm Dan, your mountain man, and guess what? That title actually is relevant again because we're talking about the 100 prequel, spin-off, backdoor pilot, announcement, maybe happening thing that was just announced. So we're going to talk about the news of what is happening with the 100 prequel, and then I'm going to talk about like my feelings about it, what I think will work, what I think I'm a little worried about. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to be the one reading you the news because Olga's still at work, so bear with me as Deadline reports. The long-rumored prequel to post-apocalyptic drama The 100 is getting closer to reality. The CW has given a backdoor pilot production order to the project. From The 100 developer, executive producer, showrunner Jason Rothenberg. The potential prequel is being developed as a planted spin-off and will be introduced in an episode from the upcoming 7th and final season of The 100. The untitled 100 prequel is set 97 years before the events of the original series. It starts with the end of the world, a nuclear apocalypse that wipes out most of the human population on Earth. Primefire. And follows a band of survivors on the ground as they learn to cope in a dangerous world while fighting to create a new and better society from the ashes of what came before. So what does all that mean? Are we getting a 100 prequel? Well, maybe. A backdoor pilot does not really mean we're definitely getting the show. I know Supernatural, for one, had numerous backdoor pilots for planned potential spin-offs, and then those shows were never actually picked up. But the idea of a backdoor pilot is, hey, we want to do a spin-off of a show that's working pretty well, and what better way to gauge whether it's going to work or whether people are interested than to put an episode in the original show, so in this case, The 100, that will sort of set off, like, what is the basic premise of this going to be? Like in Arrow back in the day, they had a sort of setting up of the Flash before Flash got his actual pilot. So we would be introduced to, probably whatever the main characters are. We would get flashbacks, I would assume. My guess is that Becca is going to be pretty prominent in this, so maybe we're going to get stuff more about, Allie and Becca and Cadigan and all that stuff. And the idea being that if that goes over well, if it's, well received, and if CW has faith in this project, that then it would be, greenlit as a full series. And so it could very easily go nowhere, or it could go into a whole new prequel series that will follow after the 100 has gone by. So my first impressions on this are I am excited simply because I want more of the 100. Now, the question is this technically more of the 100? Like, what is the essence of the 100? Is it the characters or is it the world? And to a certain degree, I'd say I care about the characters more than I care about the world. That being said, following these people directly after the events of the apocalypse could be interesting, and for all of the 100's problems, I do generally appreciate Jason's writing. And, he's introduced new characters throughout the years that I think have worked pretty well. On a personal level, I'm excited because it means that the podcast could continue on beyond the 7th season of the 100. I mean, I love doing the 100 podcast, and having a whole new show to cover could be really cool. Also, yes, I did do the first half of this video with AirPods in my ears because I forgot I had them in. That's how much I use my AirPods. I apologize. That all being said, let's talk about some of my worry points here, and there are a few of them. First of all, just generally, I'm not a huge fan of prequels, but for some very specific reasons. One is that it kind of constrains what the show can be. If you look at The 100, every season ended with a big new idea that sort of changed the game a little bit, introduced new sci-fi elements to the world, and you can't have like almost any of that stuff in a prequel series set this period in the show's history because, you can't have a second apocalypse. You can't have them leave to go live on another planet and explore a new world. You can't have, Allie come down and make the City of Light. The world is the world. We know what it is. We know there are 12 clans. We know they war with each other. We know they eventually come together. And like maybe one or two of them will find some surprising way to go somewhere else, or they'll introduce some new technology, or, we'll have the culture of Cadigan and things like that, which could be cool, but it seems like a smaller story. It seems like something that maybe could be like a one season thing or like a limited series idea. It doesn't seem like something that could ever rise to the heights of what the 100 is, because you can't have them answer these bigger questions about humanity, because that's what the original show is doing, and it's going beyond the basic premise, whereas these are just like warring factions. And that ties into my second part of the prequel problem, which is that we just know too much about what happened during these periods. We know the mountain men are over there. We know they can't defeat the grounders. We know the grounders can't defeat them. They are just going to keep being over there. We know, that the Ark never went back down to the ground. So that's, interesting. What are you going to do with that? And then, we know how the commanders came to be. We know, about Nightblood. We know so much of Becca's story. And as much as I'm excited to see more Erica Cara, who I think is a great actress, we know how she dies. We know who kills her. Do we know how we get there? No. But there's so much already of these pieces being put together that it takes a lot of the mystery out of it. All that said, I mean, it happened 97 years ago. They can certainly throw some changes that you didn't see coming in there. We could have maybe one or two people from the Ark come down and everybody thought they died, but actually they came down here. But aside from that, I mean, you can't have the whole group come down. So are you just never going to really talk about the Ark stuff all that much? Otherwise, it's just like two entirely separate shows. There's a lot of constraints put on this world as opposed to the show of the 100, which had like infinite possibilities as he was creating a new world and a new timeline, a new storyline. Now he's playing in a constrained sandbox that, I mean, again, it's not like the where things end has to be the most important piece. People always talk about the journey is more important than the end point. But part of the journey is the tension and the stakes and the suspense and the surprise and the cliffhangers. And yeah, you can do a lot of that with character, but honestly, a lot of what I have loved about the 100 is the mythology, is the sci-fi storytelling. And are we instead just going to get even more about the flame, which, let's be real, we've gotten a ton about the flame. My other big worry, and I think this might be my biggest worry, is that I feel like this premise for a show highlights the biggest problem with the mythology of the 100 to begin with, which is that the grounder culture doesn't really make sense. The fact that in 97 years they created an entirely new culture, they have an entirely new language, it feels like they've been set in the ways of this culture for at least 400 years, but it's only 97. It's always been something that I've sort of rolled my eyes at within the actual show, but you can kind of put it away because that's not the focus. But when you make it the focus of the series, it's going to start being like, well, how did this language evolve this quickly? Are we going to get any grounder language? Because unless we're having big time jumps, it's not like they're going to get the language within the first 5 to 10 years. And so it's like, how much even of their culture is going to be there versus just seeing the cultish culture of the Second Dawn and all that stuff. I mean, again, I'm excited to see Cadigan and things like that, but I just don't know how they're going to make the mythology of the Grounders believable. If you disagree about some of this stuff, I'd love to hear your opinion, but to me it seems very wishy-washy. I know some people have argued in the past maybe their culture and all this stuff happened because people were dying off so quickly from the radiation, that there were so many generations so quickly within a small time period. That's always been interesting to help them forget about how science works, forget about how technology works, create a whole new religion so quickly. But I just don't see how you can really do that when you're watching that as a show, because it's not like you're going to be killing off babies every 5 minutes, or, having our main characters die and give birth to another person. You're not going to be having that level of turnover within an actual show. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is that I'm thinking too broadly here, that if it really is about the 5 years directly after, that a lot of these culture questions don't even matter. I don't know. But what then is the point of showing this as a prequel if you're not showing how the Grounders came to be in a way? And my final worry is something I alluded to a little bit earlier, which is, why do we love the 100? Why do 100 fans love the 100? Is it the world? Is it the mythology? Is it grounder culture? I'm sure there are people who love all of those things. I've enjoyed most of those things. But most people, I feel like, that are still fans, that are hardcore fans, are there for the characters. They love Clark. They love Bellamy. They love, the shipping elements. They love the way that these characters interact. They love Raven. They love whatever. And losing those characters, like all of those characters, will people still show up? And will the show still feel like The 100 even though it doesn't have any of those people? I'm inclined to say, even though I'm worried about this and I think it might hurt them as far as viewership, overall I'm not that worried about this piece of it. If you look at how the show has evolved throughout the years, in season 2 we got Lexa and Indra, we've gotten, Antari and Luna and Roan and Ilian and, Dioza and Josephine. Like every season has had great new characters. So the show and Jason have consistently been able to find great cast members, great actors, and introduce us to new people that we fall in love with. So they can do that again here, and it helps that it's a backdoor pilot within the season. And, again, maybe it isn't even that many new people because Becca will be the prime focus. But I also wonder, maybe she won't even last that long. We'll see. I don't know. It's interesting to me that they didn't specifically say this is like the Becca show. Where it's not saying we're going to follow Becca as her rise as the first commander or anything like that. So for all we know, she could die at the end of the pilot. But anyway, I think they can introduce us to new characters that we can fall in love with. I hope they make some good decisions there. Ultimately, I'm excited. I'm intrigued about what this can be, and I hope they prove all of my worries here wrong. What do you think about this show? Are you excited about seeing Prequel? Do you think it will actually become a full show? What are you worried about? What do you want to see? All that stuff. Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and may we meet again.